Are you finding difficulty in painting your miniature collection? You're not a struggling minority. In fact, you're in the majority of hobbyists. In the past, I've fluttered from project to project, army to army, and mini to mini, leaving a wake of half-painted projects, culminating in frustration and regret. But I've figured out a methodology, a real one, with original ideas forged into an easily followable system that anyone can adopt, that will not only help them complete unit after unit, but also enjoy doing it. It will help you balance hobby and life and program your brain to become a painting machine. This is the Relic system for easy army painting. If I can do it, I promise you can too.
Hello boys. Now this video is something I wanted to touch on for quite some time. I genuinely think there's a lot of people that can actually benefit from this. So most of the advice online for staying motivated and coming up with systems and generally the methodology around actually finishing your Warhammer it's a little bit sparse, and there's a lot of generic information, and there's a lot of videos who claim to cover this topic, but they don't really give you anything much to work with beyond some just vague ideas of just wishy-washy motivational tips that aren't really specific. What I'm hoping to do today is give you a proper system. Like, I definitely suffer from ADHD, and I have been known in the past, and still a little bit to this day to be quite fair, to flitter and flutter between projects, and it's been hard, and I've had to come up with a real system that's kept me on the straight and narrow. So I'm going to share with you every single step, every single detail, and I hope, I'm pretty damn confident that you're going to find something in this that you can actually use. And please do come back to this video in the future. This video is going to be a little bit long, but it's worth sitting down and getting into. So the first part is for people who are struggling in getting going. People are struggling on actually sitting down and beginning. So that's a real big hurdle. And before we can talk about systems and how to create methods, we really need to talk about how to get going, how to start in the beginning. A lot of people are sitting on a big pile of stuff that they know they need to start doing, but they just, I'll get around to it at some point, and you're putting it off. Look, we've all done it. We all do it. So this is what I've got to address that. So this is the very first thing, and this is a side to the system which we're about to get into, and I like to call this the 5-minute rule. This is a really good hack, and it works for pretty much anyone across any kind of artistic endeavor. But in the beginning, it's something that you can 100% leverage to just get yourself going. It's a very little small promise that you just can make to yourself that anybody has the time to do and anybody has the willpower to do. Basically, all we do with this is we tell ourselves, I'm going to sit down and paint my miniatures for 5 minutes. It's a very small commitment that you can just make to yourself on the fly to just get your foot in the door.
The 5-minute rule is probably the simplest part of the whole system, but it is probably also the most useful, and especially if you're getting going. So I really want to spend a little time helping you completely understand how this works. The rule is this: you do not tell yourself you're going to sit down and paint for 3 hours. It's a bad idea. You don't tell yourself you're going to finish a squad. You don't even tell yourself you're going to have a proper hobby session. You just say to yourself, I'm going to do 5 minutes. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15. Whatever feels so small that your brain can't mount any convincing argument against doing it. And the important thing is that the deal is genuine. If you do 5 to 10 minutes and you want to stop, you can stop. That still counts. It has to be genuine. You can't intend to trick yourself. Make sure the parameters are genuinely genuine. Because the real purpose of the rule isn't productivity, right? It's initiation. A lot of procrastination happens before we've even started the task. We imagine the whole thing at once. We imagine getting the paints out, sitting there for hours, concentrating, cleaning everything afterwards, and suddenly what should be a relaxing hobby starts to feel like an obligation. So the brain starts negotiating. I'm a bit tired, I'll do it tomorrow. There's not enough time tonight, I'll wait until I can have a proper session. And that's how weeks disappear, and as we all know, Warhammer motivation and focus comes in weeks. The 5-minute rule completely changes the size of the commitment, and that's the main thing. You're not asking yourself to paint an army, you're not even asking yourself to paint for an evening. You're asking yourself to sit down, pick up a brush, and merely do something for 5 or 10 minutes. And that is psychologically cheaper. And once you've started, that's where the magic begins and the whole equation changes. Before you begin, there's friction. You have to make the decision, move yourself to the desk, get the stuff out, and transition from whatever else you were doing. But once you're already sitting there with a brush in your hand, getting into a rhythm, beginning to enjoy it, that friction has disappeared. Now stopping is actually the decision. And that's why so often 5 minutes turns into 20 minutes, 20 minutes into an hour, and suddenly you've had a productive painting session that you didn't even plan on doing. And you've basically gone and put your foot in the door and made something out of nothing. Everything after that initial 5 to 10 minutes is a bonus and feels like a win. That's the real trick in convincing yourself to begin.
So that if you're struggling to get going, remember, it's only 10 minutes. Now that I've got myself comfortable with spending more than 10 minutes at a time, it's time to talk about the system and how we plan our sessions. So I call this method the relics method, and essentially it's a form of block planning. These sessions are 3 hours long with a 20 to 30 minute break right in the middle.
The reason I like planning hobby sessions in blocks is that it changes the project psychologically, and that's really what we're trying to do here. So most of us don't actually struggle because painting 10 Space Marines is physically difficult. We struggle because the project exists in this vague, undefined space in our head. You look at the box and think, I'll get those done eventually, but eventually isn't a plan. There's no beginning, no end, and no real sense of progress. So instead, I want you to start thinking in sessions. A session is roughly 3 hours, 90 minutes of focused work, a proper 25 to 30 minute break, then another 90 minutes. That's a full session. 90 minutes is long enough to get properly settled into a task and build momentum, but short enough that you're not relying on yourself to stay intensely focused for an entire afternoon. And that break in the middle matters. It gives you a mental reset. Get away from the desk, make a drink, eat something, walk around. Then when you come back, you're effectively beginning a second focused block instead of dragging yourself through hour 3 of one enormous painting session. The real useful part isn't actually the 90 minutes. It's what happens when you start using these sessions as a unit of measurement. Instead of looking at a unit and saying, I need to paint 5 Terminators, you start saying, I think this is 3 sessions. Maybe session 1 is armor and base colors, session 2 is details, weapons and shading, and then session 3 is highlights, bases and finishing touches. And suddenly, the army stops being this enormous abstract project and becomes a finite number of appointments. And psychologically, that is a massive difference. Your brain is much better at dealing with defined tasks than an open-ended obligation. Finish my army sounds enormous. Tuesday evening, session 2 of 3, that sounds completely manageable. It also removes one of the biggest killers of productivity, deciding what to do every time you sit down. If you've already planned the session, you don't spend the first 20 minutes staring at your models, reorganizing paints, watching YouTube, and wondering what you feel like working on. You've already decided that earlier. The next point will address this even more directly. When the session starts, you know exactly what the job is. There's another little psychological benefit here as well. You start creating visible wins. Every completed session is something you can tick off in your head. As once you've completed 2 sessions of a 4-session project, your brain no longer sees a pile of unfinished models, it sees something that is tangibly, measurably 50% complete, and that creates momentum. And once you can understand where the finish line is, you're much more likely to move towards it. So don't say, I'll paint this army eventually, or paint this unit up in who knows how long. Work out exactly how many focus sessions it requires and put those sessions somewhere in your week ahead of time. Try to visualize where you're going to get those sessions in and look forward to them. And then just turn up and complete the next session. You're essentially taking motivation out of the equation. You don't need to wake up feeling randomly inspired to do a bit of painting. You've already made the decision. You've already broken the project down. All you have to do is complete the session in front of you. And then you can use your 5-minute rule, 10-minute rule to begin your session. Maybe you'll only commit yourself to a half session and just do a single 90 minutes. But we all know, once you start seeing that progress, you're going to keep going.
What's up, boys? This is Post-Production Relics here. I just want to plug my affiliate link for Red October Games. This is the cheapest Warhammer in the world, by the way, guys. This isn't just any old affiliate link. So everybody knows that UK has the cheapest Warhammer in the world. Well, Red October has the cheapest Warhammer in the UK. So you know what that means? The cheapest in the world, baby. Click the affiliate link. You help support the channel. And you get 25% off all your hobby stuff. I mean, come on, guys. What you got to lose? Throw a dog a bone, baby. Back to the video. Now, sometimes you won't have time for a full session, and that's fine. You can put in a half session. So you can also split it into time that you've got left on a miniature. You might say, oh, well, I'll put in a session now, and then it'll only take me one more half session to get done. Say I've got some last edge highlights to complete or some last finishing details. It just makes it a lot easier for your brain to compute and accept with and live with. And it comes into the next part. So now that you've got an idea of what you can get done in your sessions, it's time to set aside time specifically for doing this activity. So if I buy a box of Terminators and I think, right, it's going to take me 3 sessions to get these done, I can get a session in on this day, probably that day, and that day. And then it becomes a quantifiable amount of time and amount of effort that goes into painting that thing. It makes it a lot easier to start and a lot easier for you to psychologically stomach the task at hand. There's also something to be said about just having dedicated time for doing this thing. A lot of us will just plonk ourselves down at our hobby desk and have all these sorts of things around us. Oh, what should we crack on with today? Spend half your time choosing what you're going to do, and half of your time doing a bit of basing, doing a bit of this, doing a bit of that. I suggest that you take control of your own time and dedicate time in your head. Pre-plan it ahead of time, maybe even at the start of the week or just at some point before you do it. It's best not to just come up with it on the fly and have an idea of when it's going to happen in your head. So let your body and mind sink into the task and complete it much more efficiently with a lot more pleasure and a lot less feeling like you're just sporadically fighting against the tide of ever-passing time, if you know what I mean. No, another part of this system is something I like to call the tray. Now, the tray is literally just a tray. So how I like to do it is I have my current ongoing project. This is the thing that I'm spending my sessions on. I'll put all of my models onto this tray and all of the paints and utensils required to complete this product on the tray as well. So what will happen is I'll come up to my desk and I'll lift down my tray from a shelf. I like to just put it up out of the way so it clears my desk space. And that's just an overall thing we'll get into later in terms of controlling your environment. But the tray helps you compartmentalize your task at hand, and it leaves you not with loads of things scattered around you, and it freezes you up. It's good to have a dedicated tray for the project you're working on. Trust me, it's a psychological hack that will help a lot. And it also just keeps things uncluttered, which is also good for your mind and your productivity.
So the tray sounds almost stupidly simple, but I think psychologically it often does a lot more work than you would expect. Essentially, the basic idea is that the tray becomes the project. So when I'm done for the day, I don't have to dismantle everything and put every single paint back into storage. I can just put the tray on the shelf, like I said. And then when the next session comes around, I can pull it down and effectively carry on from exactly where I left off without the mess. And this matters because one of the biggest barriers to doing anything consistently is friction. We keep talking about this word friction, and it's something we are trying to eliminate at every corner. If every time you want to paint, you have to clear a space, find the models, remember which paints you were using, hunt down the right washes, set everything back up and mentally reconstruct what you were doing last time, you've already created half a dozen little opportunities to decide, I'll do it tomorrow. The tray removes all of that. There's no real setup process. The project is just waiting for you to hop into. And I think there's another important psychological effect here, which is that it narrows your field of attention. Hobbyists are often surrounded by temptation. You've got another box on the shelf, another army you want to start, something you saw online yesterday, a model you suddenly feel like assembling. If everything is sitting around your desk all at once, all those things are competing for your attention. The tray creates a boundary. This is what I'm doing now. These are the models, these are the paints, this is the job. Everything else can wait. In a way, you're outsourcing some of your self-discipline to the environment around you. Instead of repeatedly having to make the decision not to start something else, you arrange your workspace so the current project is the obvious thing to work on. And the rule is that I like that the project stays on the tray until it is finished. That is key. You don't clear the tray because you're bored of this unit. You don't replace it because something else shinier arrived in the post. Finishing the project is what earns you the empty tray. The empty tray is the goal. That gives this tray a sort of psychological finality to it. There's a defined state of unfinished and a defined state of finished. And when the tray finally empties, there's a little reward built into the system. You've closed the loop. You can put those completed models into the army, clear the tray, and then deliberately choose the next project. As I say, the clear tray is the goal. This feels very different from having 5 or 6 half-painted units scattered across the desk indefinitely. It also helps storage from active work. Your collection might be enormous, and looking at a collection in and of itself is daunting when you want to start something. But if your active project is small, that's the way forward. And that distinction is important because you don't want your brain trying to process an entire army every time you sit down to paint. You only need to process what's on the tray. The sessions tell you when you're working and roughly how much time the project is going to take. The tray tells you what you're working on. One removes uncertainty around time, the other removes uncertainty around focus.
So now we talked a little bit about planning your new sessions. Now it's time to talk about the processes. The number one piece of advice I can give for you getting things done is to simplify the schemes as much as you can, especially if you're a new painter. Don't be getting embroiled in some super elaborate scheme straight off the bat. I think it's sometimes quite good to allow yourself to paint simply. And really nice clean paint schemes don't need to have 100 steps to them. Try to use the 3 or 4 color rule. There really shouldn't be more than 3 or 4 main colors. I'm not talking about like lens colors and so on and so forth, but try to reuse those kind of colors where you can, and try to stick to 3 main colors and a 4th kind of accent special color for every single scheme you come up with. It's actually more psychologically and aesthetically effective while being a lot quicker for you to get through on the table. Don't put hurdles up in front of yourself is basically what I'm trying to tell you. So now you've got a pretty good simplified scheme for what you're working on. It's time to actually plan your mini process. This will actually help you going back to your session planning of knowing exactly kind of how much stuff you can get done. Before I start a miniature, I'm going to figure out exactly where I'm going to put everything, what colors are going to be what, exactly what I'm choosing for each component, and then I'm going to get all of the paints out and ready for that pot. For those individual components, collect everything up onto the tray, including the miniatures, before I begin. It's really good to have a clear outline of which different parts of the miniature are going to be which colors, and it's going to help save time, not going back and forth, recoloring bits that you've missed and stuff. And this also comes into the part of just taking your time, but we'll get onto that soon. So once your scheme is planned, it's now time to start the production line. Now this is a method of painting that everyone should use if they're actually trying to get stuff done. And this isn't something I'm going to touch into too deeply because everybody pretty much knows about it unless you're completely brand new, which is fine. Production lining is basically a methodology where you complete every single component on every single miniature before moving to the next component. For instance, I'll do all bolter casings on every single miniature, then I'll do all the chest crests, but I like to split these up into color groups. So for instance, if my bolter casing, my back knee pit tubing and my other bits of tubing are all black, I'm going to do the black parts on all miniatures. So really you should be thinking about it of separating it off into the different color groups and do it on every single miniature before you move on to the next stage. Now, I had a really good tip from one of my friends, Gabriel Thorne, who is a professional commission painter, who's been a professional commission painter for a very long time. And he says he likes to split things up into 5s. So in the past, I've tried to do 10s, and it does become a bit of a slog. And you can start to lose a bit of interest doing 10 things at once, as I just said. So splitting groups down into 5, lessening the amount you've got to do while still keeping a good production line going, well, that's a very good, valuable tip. So in your sessions, one thing I suggest that you do while you're production lining is when you while you start one of your processes, say I'm going to do the crow's ears on every single Terminator, do not stop. Even if your session runs over a little bit, do not stop until you've finished every single one. Because what this will do is create a little, a mental, when you come to it again, you're going to have, okay, well, I've got to finish the Croziuses before I can move on to the next one. It's always good to start your next session on a completely clean slate or a brand new activity or part of the miniature to crack on with. Again, these are little psychological wins, little psychological tricks that you play on yourself to basically keep your enthusiasm and keep the variety coming, keep the different tasks varied, really. I'm sure you understand what I'm getting at. Now, this is something I've been particularly guilty of not doing, and that is leaving the fun bits for the end. So if you've got bits like Power Sword, leave that for the end. If you've got bits that you really want to do, cool bits like the lenses and stuff like that, that's going to make cool, lovely aesthetic impacts that happen really quickly, save them to the end. If you have your pudding before your dinner, you're not going to want your dinner. Do you know what I mean? So now let's talk about staggering project variants. So you completed your first unit. Congratulations. You've used your sessions properly. It's gone faster than you thought. Yeah, and everything's hunky-dory. Now, don't immediately do that same kind of unit again. For instance, if you've just done 10 infantry, do a tank or a character, or switch armies and do one of your other projects. Keep it staggered. I'm really particularly speaking to guys who are the Tyranid players, the Orc players amongst us. I'm of both, actually, and it can get a bit sloggy painting up 100 Tyranids in one go, or 100 Gaunts in one go. I like to put a monster in between squads and just try to vary your processes and your experience as much as you can. So stagger those projects in terms of unit variation. Now, you finished painting the unit. What you need to do, and there's no excuses here, is base it immediately. That unit is not finished until it's based. Do not move on to the next project before it's based. Believe me, it will be a long ass time before you come around to basing that miniature. Now, some of my pals have glorious 3,000 point lists of Tau, Squiddy, painted up, and barely any base is done. And that army isn't finished. For all the work he's put in, all of the edge highlights that he's painstakingly done over many, many, many nights, those armies still aren't finished because he hasn't based them. And one of the main things that he's done is because he's created this gigantic backlog of where he'd need to base all day long. And that's created a roadblock mentally for him. And he still hasn't based his stuff because he's an idiot. Alright, so now we've got you a great methodology for getting that unit done. Now let's talk about some other adjacent tips that you can tack on to this system to make it go even better and motivate yourself. So here we go. First one, book in events and games ahead of time. This gives you a little goal in the near horizon of something to work towards. Now, make sure you give yourself plenty of time. Give yourself a week or 2 weeks, and maybe organize something for the end of the month. You got a certain amount of guys to do. Make sure you've already kind of got those guys in the pipeline, or you've already set aside some money for them. Otherwise, it can become quite stressful if you think you need to branch out and spend a bit more than you've got in the old treasury, if you know what I mean. But obviously, I mean, this one's pretty damn obvious, but it gives you like a little thing to aim for, and there's a lot to be said about having a little near-sighted goal in mind and a reason to actually get these guys ready and painted up. If you tack this onto this block session system, it's going to become pretty easy overall, and you should find yourself pretty motivated. Now, this is something that the entire Warhammer community struggles with. We all struggle with it. I'd be very impressed if you ever totally get over this, but this is something that I would suggest to anybody, and anybody with any good sense would suggest it too. If anybody says this isn't something you should do, it's pure and utter cope, and that is finish your current unit before you buy the next one. Too many times have I seen people buy an entire army before they've even painted one, and then you become frozen up. I know guys who have 2,000 point lists who have never even primed them. and they're scared to, because they've created this big roadblock and this big unsurmountable task in front of them, and no wonder they're not motivated. No wonder it's daunting. So guys, buy one at a time. Use this method to get it cracked out. Think about it in sessions. I pick up this box. Okay, this is 3, maybe 3.5 sessions. That's a quantifiable amount of time in your head. You're going to be able to get it done. I promise you. So the next thing is, go for accuracy and forget about speed. Now, the biggest viewed video on my channel is the Tyranid Xenomorph Speed Painting Guide. And we all like to get things done fast, but if you try to go really, really fast and color everything in as quickly as possible, you're going to make mistakes unless you're very, very experienced. What I suggest you do is slow down and go for accuracy. Make sure you've hit every single point. For instance, I want to make sure I'm going to go around every single miniature and just make damn sure that I've colored every single bit of black in or every single bit of metal in before I move on to the next process. This is going to make it so I don't have to go back. I'm not wasting time in my sessions. I'm not having to do another half session on just going back on bits that I've missed, and I'm not going to have to go back on recolor bits that I didn't mean to hit. And that's kind of the main thing. Trust me, accuracy is speed when it comes to this. Now, this part is actually maybe secondarily the most important thing that you can do, and this is seriously something you need to consider and implement, and you really need to control your environment. Now, the tray method is really going to help you do this, because you can put your current project away and it's not cluttering up your area. A lot of us aren't as fortunate as to have a dedicated area like this. I mean, for the longest time, I never had anything like this. This is only very recently. And I had a kitchen table to work on, or a small little desk, or whatever it is. So most of us can't just have all our stuff lying out. And to be honest, I don't recommend that you actually do. I recommend you have everything put away, organize everything, control your space, use the tray to bring your projects out or put it away at a whim, and make the area that you're in actually like nice, cleanish, tidy, and at least half decently organized. I think it's at the end of every single session, rather than having all your miniatures around you. And look, I'm the pot calling the kettle black right now, but when I put everything away and use my tray to control the environment, it's a lot more inviting, and you do want to come sit down, get your stuff out and crack on. But this also goes into what you're listening to. So you could put on your audiobooks, get some lore on, some music on, whatever it is, bake that into your routine, control your environment, and just make sure you're not going to get distracted for your sessions. That's another big thing. It's all about making a place that you're not only willing to go and spend a lot of time in, but it's got to be a happy place. It's got to be comfortable, it's got to be nice, and it's got to be a little slice of you. So the last piece of information I have for you is to surround yourself with support. So maybe you could book in with yourself some of your sessions to do in a group with your friends. So maybe you could say, oh, I'll get a real good double session in. I'll go down to the friendly local gaming store or club, and I'll get in a big double session or a main session with the boys. Some of those can be really productive, and some of them can be not at all productive, and you just sit there talking shit for hours. Yeah, that's more kind of what I would do. What I like to do is do it in my own little controlled environment. Sometimes I have my friends come to my house and we do it in here together, but this is the area that I do it in. Like, I'm psychologically prepared, and it's the area that I sit down to do it, and my brain is like programmed that this is what we do here. And that's another big thing, controlling your environment. So there still is a good way of surrounding yourself with that kind of support network, and doing it with others while you're still in your own zone that you've created. And that is joining a good community. Now, I don't want to just plug my own Discord here, but the Relics of War community is all about hobbying together. We do weekly painting streams where you can just join in and paint along with us. We're all having a good chat. But unlike many communities, you guys can actually join in on the voice channels, and we can actually talk during the streams, and we're always sharing hobby pictures with each other, or seeing what everybody's getting up to. And it's just a good way to have people to do the hobby with, in like a big old group on the internet full of people all doing the exact same stuff. And sometimes it's good to have those people to talk to while you're doing the hobby and getting through your sessions. I'm quite a social creature, and I like to do stuff with other people most of the time. So yeah, it works for me for sure. So that concludes the Relics of War method to actually getting your armies done. I hope this has been informative for you. I hope that you've found something in there that, oh, that can actually work for me. I'm going to go give it a go. And honestly, guys, I hope it equips you with the psychological tools to finally get those armies done it's everyone's capable of it. You just need that kind of methodology and special approach. But all this kind of stuff will become second nature to you. Like you can come back and reference this video if you need to, but I think this kind of stuff will just become baked into your daily hobby life. And I genuinely do believe that this is something that's going to help a lot of people. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say down in the comments section. Do you think this is going to be good? Or do update me if you implement it. Come back to the video. Please do let me know and let everybody else know if it does work. I've tried to make this as ungeneric as I possibly can and actually give you an original, genuine plan, step by step, on how to actually do this, rather than give you some motivational humbo shmumbo. So I've been Relics of War. Thank you very much for watching this video. I wish you all the very best with your projects from now until the end of your days. Relics is gone.